Well, on the website, outbreaknewstoday.com, I've been following the Rift Valley fever outbreak on the island of Mayotte pretty much since the outbreak started back in November. And here's the latest from the health agency of Reunion in Mayotte. And it says, since the beginning of the circulation of the Rift Valley fever virus in Mayotte at the end of November 2018, 142 human cases have been reported and 126 animal cases have been reported. So if we take a look at it, today it says a clear decrease is observed as well for the human cases as for the animal hearths. However, during the Manzaraka season, the health authorities reiterate the importance of continuing to respect preventive measures to prevent contamination and prevent epidemic recurrence at the return of the rainy season. So, it's been about a month since a human or an animal case has been reported in Mayotte. And we see 126 animals, 100 of which were cattle and 26 were small ruminants. And no new case since July 12th. And that really goes for the human cases also. It's been that month since a human case was reported. But since the beginning of the epidemic, they've seen 142 human cases. 2 serious cases have been reported, and I don't believe there's been any fatalities. So that's good news. So we've been keeping a close eye on what's going on in Mayotte concerning Rift Valley fever. Now, Rift Valley fever is an acute fever-causing viral disease that's mostly seen in domesticated animals such as cattle and sheep and goats. But it also has the ability to infect people. The disease is caused by the Rift Valley fever virus, which is a member of the genus Phlebivirus. It was first reported in livestock in Kenya's Rift Valley in the early 1910s. Now, it's pretty much seen in southern Africa, places where sheep and cattle are raised, but it also is seen in areas of sub-Saharan Africa. We see it as north up, like in Egypt, and also some of the islands off the east coast, like Madagascar and Mayotte, for example, and the Comoros. Now, one time Rift Valley fever caused an outbreak outside of Africa, and that was about back in 2000, and that was in Saudi Arabia and Yemen. And these were actually quite large outbreaks, and these were the first cases ever seen outside of Africa. Rift Valley fever has a lot of major societal problems economically, right? I mean, these people are losing their source of income, their animals, their livestock. And the livestock, it causes disease in livestock, abortion in domesticated animals, and outbreaks of the disease in animal populations are called epizootic, and we'll hear about that again. And the most notable Rift Valley fever epizootic occurred in Kenya in 1950 to 1951, which resulted in about 100,000 sheep dying. So, epizootic outbreaks, of course, increase the chance of contact between the diseased animals and humans, which can lead to epidemics of Rift Valley fever in humans, kind of like what we saw in Mayotte in the past 7 or 8 months. So, let's take a look at the map. And if we look at this map and you look at the blue countries, these are countries where it's endemic and where they've seen epidemics. In the green countries, they see few cases, but cases have been seen. And the tan countries, it's either unknown or they've never had a case. So as you can see, as I already mentioned, it's starting in southern Africa, working basically up the east coast, Madagascar and the surrounding islands, including Mayotte, and a couple countries in Central and West Africa. And of course, Saudi Arabia and Yemen, the first time it ever left the African continent. Now, Most human cases result from direct or indirect contact with the blood or organs of infected animals. So people that are handling the tissue, slaughtering, butchering, vets, any kind of occupation where you're handling animal tissue. The virus infects humans through inoculation, so via a wound from an infected knife, contact with broken skin, inhalation of aerosols. This is something that could be seen while they're slaughtering the animals. There's been some evidence produced that shows that humans could become infected with Rift Valley fever by ingesting unpasteurized milk and from the animals. Human infections have also resulted from the bites of infected mosquitoes, most commonly the Aedes and the Culex mosquitoes. And it's also been documented that transmission can occur from blood-feeding flies in addition. And to date, there's really no documented evidence of person-to-person contact or transmission. And there's different clinical features to go along with Rift Valley fever in humans. There's a mild form, which is essentially fever, right? Then the severe form, which can cause many different types of distinct syndromes, ranging from the eye to meningoencephalitis to hemorrhagic fever. And all of the above can be quite serious in their own way. Some major outbreaks that have occurred since 2000. We've seen, in Niger, South Africa, Madagascar, had several. Egypt, there was a big one. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Saudi Arabia and Yemen, the first time it left the African continent. In Saudi Arabia, there were 516 cases and 87 fatalities. In Yemen, there was over 1,000 suspected cases and 121 fatalities. So, yeah, it can be a very, very serious disease. So the question that's being asked by researchers at Colorado State University, I found this pretty interesting, and it's very, very proactive. They're looking at the potential of Rift Valley fever transmission in livestock in Colorado, and of course, that would also lead to possibly infection in human beings. So they asked the question, what would happen if Rift Valley fever virus ever hit the U.S.? With multiple routes of entry into the U.S., the most likely path of introduction would be a traveler from overseas. And the consequences for humans and livestock would be significant, according to the research team at Colorado State University. Now, the researchers investigated mosquito communities near livestock feedlots in northern Colorado to determine the potential for mosquitoes to transmit the virus. They found that the Culex tarsalis mosquitoes, which were abundant in feedlots at nearby sites, could serve as a vector or a means of transmitting Rift Valley fever virus between livestock and humans in Colorado. And their study was published in the journal Transboundary and Emerging Diseases. And they published this short 1-minute video. I want to go ahead and share that with you real quick.
The Rift Valley fever virus is it's a veterinary pathogen, also infectious to people. It's transmitted by mosquitoes. It's not here in the United States, but it's on the list of things that we should be looking at as far as something that could possibly be introduced here. We're trying to be proactive and learn more about the mosquitoes' interaction with cattle, what species are feeding on cattle, what the relative abundance is, species composition over the course of the summer, and try to learn more about what species maybe we should be studying more in the laboratory as far as potential vectors of Rift Valley fever virus. We're trying to learn from West Nile and Zika virus as far as the perspective that a virus will show up and we don't know anything about it, and so how can we immediately respond? We're trying to see if there's any mosquito species that we should be zeroing in on as far as potential vectors of emerging arboviruses, and so we can do those important laboratory studies. So if and when Rift Valley fever virus shows up, we have a bit of a head start on how to control it.
Okay, so let me just go ahead and close this out. We've looked at the epidemic of Rift Valley fever in Mayotte, a little bit of history about Rift Valley fever, some of the major outbreaks over the years, the geography, and some very interesting proactive research going on at Colorado State. And I'll link to the study in the show notes so you can take a look at that for yourself. But yeah, this world's getting very smaller, right? And if you can say that Rift Valley fever will never show up in the United States, I would say that's probably not the wisest way to look at it. But anyway, Rift Valley fever. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends. Like it. Comment below. And I'll see you next time.